Good evening. And welcome. This is August, right? Even though it's September?
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome to the August Marvin Gardens video. Even though it's September, it's actually Labor Day. But this is a very special Marvin Gardens August video because we have distinguished guests, as evidenced by the fact that I'm not holding the camera. And if the camera was turned a little bit, you'd see one distinguished hairy guest, one distinguished hairy guest butt in the lap of another distinguished guest
Who's hairy?
who can't twist the camera any further, but I will introduce him nonetheless. Mr. Craig Morris, who is an esteemed videographer and a gardener, and he will be the primary cameraman for this month. In fact, probably the only cameraman. And we have another distinguished guest to my left, Mary Perkins Morris, my blood sister, and the wife of the distinguished Craig Morris. And she is also a very accomplished vegetable eater. And has many other credits to her name, including art gallery manager, you're a SAG actress, right? Done numerous commercials, if I recall correctly. So we might be able to take advantage of her acting prowess to help demonstrate some of the bounty that we have this month. And we have a third human distinguished guest who's making her way out to the garden as we speak. And that is also a blood sister of mine, Sandra Perkins Rosenshine. Right now she's trying to figure out what bird is squawking that you might be hearing in the distance. But as she approaches, let's surprise her, shall we? We're not videoing. Don't worry, there's no film in the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra Perkins Rosenshine! Alright, we have met most of our distinguished guests. The regulars are here also. That's Jessie working on her usual excavation project. Frankie was around here a second ago. I don't know where he is now. But we need to get this thing going because this is not going to be your average viral YouTube video 30-second long clip. This is going to be probably a good solid half hour because we've already got some stuff that's been shot previously this month, or not this month, actually last month. It's supposed to be this month, which is August, that we're going to have to add in addition to what we're going to shoot today, and we're going to spend some time out here today too. But we're going to start where we always start, which is...
Chives!
Very good. Chives is where we usually start, so
Frankie
we're going to stroll over
is making his
there.
way toward the chives.
Oh, well, he knows.
He is, yes. So, it's spritzing a little bit, but we think we're going to be okay. And these are the chives. Now, the chives have a little bit of grass growing in between. Oh, and this is our professional SAG actress demonstrating the chives. Very important to get the proper atmosphere here. And the chives are still harvestable. Like I've said many times before, they get a little neglected this time of year. But they're still going strong. And our little water feature.
By the way, you don't have a speaking part.
Yeah, that pays extra.
You're an extra.
You're an extra. You get treated like scum.
I can handle it.
No, you can speak. Hey, look, it does zoom. Did you bring the zoom? Oh, jeez. We'll figure that out later. Anyway, this is sort of no man's land here, where I dump hay and compost and stuff, and I also do my cast-off plants here. And you can tell that we've had a pretty good year in the garden because we have cast-off plants that are actually producing. You can see a little zucchini down here. I've pulled a few summer squash. You can see some little tiny broccolis here. And you can see some peppers. So all my cast-off plants are actually producing out here with no attention to them whatsoever. There's a little Martha Washington tomato. So that's always a good sign when you have stuff happening in your cast-offs. And I think we skipped the first part here of this bed, so let's go back a little bit. I'll show you two remaining heads of cabbage, which look a little chewed on the outside, but once you peel off those outside layers of leaves, those are two nice heads of cabbage that we have waiting. And this is also a long storage variety of cabbage, so once we get those in the fridge, they will stick around for months. In spite of this slug here, these are just side shoots of broccoli, but very edible, very harvestable, and we will have them in the weeks to come. That one is just about perfect. We probably should take it tonight. And then the next over on the brassica is looking very chewed up because I haven't been keeping up with my spraying, are the Brussels sprouts. In fact, these are in a lot worse shape than I realized. Look at all these gone leaves, and there's a, can you get that guy right there? Caterpillar? Creep. Anyway, it looks like we're not going to have a very good Brussels sprouts here, and it's probably my fault, because this is just covered with
Here's
caterpillars.
some Brussels sprouts on this one.
Is there?
Oh yeah, look.
Oh yeah, there are some. Those aren't bad over there.
Yeah.
But I obviously need to spray some bacillus on those guys. And they get a little neglected. Now, next, right at the feet of the cameraman, is Aunt Molly's ground cherries. And both Frankie and Jessie love these things. If I was able to get their attention. Frankie, you want a ground cherry? Come on, boy. And they grow in these little husks. The yellow ones means they're ripe. And I think last month we showed you how much he likes them. And Jessie likes them too. Right, Jessie? You want a ground cherry? No? And our distinguished guests like them also. Okay, here's your big speaking part. How do you like this? Try it, Sandy.
Yum. Hold on.
That's why she's paid the big bucks. All right, moving on.
Evidently.
These are bush beans, only a few left here. These are actually Roma 2. If you can get that one down there, that's about the only good looking one we got. Bush beans are pretty much done for. We got a few more coming in. The pole beans are still coming on strong. As you can see, the ones that I really love, just because of their uniqueness, are these yard longs, and quite a few that are harvestable. The other main variety, and tell me if I'm moving around too fast, these are rattlesnake, which are the green with the little purple stripes, and they've been coming in literally for months now. Some more squash bugs. Besides the squash bugs, there are some more. These beans have been left a little too long, actually. They're starting to get a little tough, but doing pretty well. And finally, on this end, we have lima beans, which have been coming in kind of slow but steady. And there's a pod right there that I picked that is, I shouldn't have picked. Grabbed it by mistake. But see if there's another one here that's ripe. You want to look for these when they're sort of yellowish, but not dried out, and that's when they're perfect to be eaten fresh. But the nice thing about all the varieties of beans is that if you don't catch them in time, you just turn them into dried beans, and they work fine that way. Here's the pet memorial area, which just got cleaned out a little bit. This rose plant here I almost smothered with overgrowth, but it seems to be coming back okay, so it might survive. And Frankie's checking out what might be underneath the hay, because you never know when there's going to be a rodent hanging around, right, Frankie? He's got his skull and crossbones scarfy on because he's a bad boy. He's a great boy. And covering this bed, the end of this bed, is sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, unlike the other potatoes, won't be harvestable until around the first frost. And if you look closely down here, I probably showed you this in an earlier video, but I've covered the entire bed, or at least the plant area, with chicken wire, coated chicken wire, and that is just to hopefully prevent rodent damage, because they really go after sweet potatoes and can decimate a crop. All right, how are we doing so far? Good, good. Bed number 2, at this end we've got okra. Now this is what happens when you leave an okra for too long. That's going to be really kind of woody and probably too tough to eat, although sometimes they surprise me. This is just about perfect. This is probably the best eaten size right there. And these are the kind of unusual because they're orange. And if this were mid-afternoon, these would be blooming, beautiful cream-colored blooms. In fact, I think in the potato video that we have coming up, I do show one of these in bloom because that was shot during the afternoon. Moving on to summer squash, which is kind of on its last legs, at least some of them. This is a zucchini. Now you saw that we had a zucchini over in the compost area. I don't think we have any here. There's a little one coming in. Probably hard to get to. But they're slowing down quite a bit. See it in there? There we go. And haven't pulled too many of those recently. The ones that have been very prolific are the scallop squash. And there's one here that's a little bigger than it should be for harvesting. But there's another one that's just coming in, and maybe tomorrow or the next day will be absolutely perfect. And they've been great. Sorry, let me pull that back again. They've been great all season long. I also have a yellow zucchini. And like I said before, I don't know the difference between a yellow summer squash and a yellow zucchini. But these have not done as well. A lot of them end up like this. They just sort of self-abort. But we've gotten a bunch of good ones. So that's not too bad. All right, where are we? Who am I? This used to be peas. Pulled back all the netting because the peas are long since done for. All these marigolds, which are volunteers, they all came up by themselves, are providing a nice fill for what used to be the pea bed. And we have beets. Now, one thing I can do when I have someone else working the camera is I can show you a beet because I've got 2 hands free. And these beets are so nice that I love to show them off. And so I'm going to yank one of these guys and show you why I like them so much by cutting it in half. Yeah. You got that? Good shot of it. These beets are called gold touchstone, I believe.
Will you keep the boom zook out of the camera, please? Thank you.
Oh, did that zook boom get in again?
Yeah.
Damn. Well, that's what makes us sound so good. Yeah. These beets are great, as I've said many times before, if you're a frequenter of the Marvin Gardens videos, because if you stir fry them with other vegetables, they don't dominate the other vegetables by that red beet color. So these guys get that great beet flavor, but because of that light color, they're much more appealing looking as far as I'm concerned, and they don't overpower any of the other vegetables. Right next to that we have a row of carrots, and some of these we have harvested recently. Let me see if I can find a good one to pull out. This is kind of small, but it's not bad shape. I've got a few. This one might be a little bit bigger.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Not bad. But these are pretty good shape. They're not eaten up very much, so they're okay. I don't want to leave them too long because eventually they do get eaten, that's for sure. I think that takes care of bed 1 and 2, right? Jessie is still working on her job. And Bubba, our distinguished guest from Maryland, is wondering, what should I do next, Mom? Oh yes, let's show you, here he is too. Let me show you if we can get a good picture of this. I'll see if I can turn it up a little without disturbing him. This is a guy that's been sitting on this marigold plant all month at least. And it looks like it's some kind of a spider. And he just sits like that on the top of the bloom until something, like a bee, lands on it. And when it lands on the flower, he somehow clamps onto it and injects it with some sort of venom, and then does what spiders do, which is suck the blood out of it. And I've been out here and seen him with at least 2 insects hanging onto them and you know, sucking the life out of them. And then he just hangs out and waits for another one. So, and I think he's about 2 times bigger than he used to be. So, I've never seen one like that before. I don't know what it is. If somebody knows what it is, send me a comment and let me know. And that'll be a question answered, right? Okay. Where are we?
The cameraman had to get a little refreshment.
Lubricant. This is the bed number 3, which is the half bed. And that's going to bring us to a couple of our intercut videos. Right where all this hay is where the onions used to be. We had 2 varieties of onions, Candy and Red Zeppelin. And they were both harvested earlier in the month of August. And I'm going to show you that video right now so you can see what happened. Okay, so we have entered the dog days of summer in August, and one of the things that happens in the dog days of summer is that we do some harvesting. And in this case, we are harvesting onions, which is not a huge endeavor, but I thought you might like to see. Basically, the onions have signaled that they are ready to be harvested by the tops falling over. So it's really easy to tell when it's time for them to go, and all we're going to do is yank them from the ground, rinse them off a little bit, and then lay them out to dry. So here we go. Look at the size of that guy. Nice, huh? So there you end up with a nice onion harvest. Some of them huge, like this nice big sweet Candy, and then some smaller ones. And these Red Zeppelin, these are the nicest red onions I've ever grown, and some of them are pretty good size as well. So they lived up to their name. Some people wouldn't wash their onions off before drying them, but I prefer getting some of the dirt off so that the chef doesn't have to deal with it, because, you know, after all, I am the chef too. So there you have it. Dog days of summer, harvest number 1, onions, and very nice. But wait, there's more. I wanted to add this one quick addendum, because after they laid out here for about a week, the way that you saw them before, I snipped the tops off of them, and then let them sit out here for another several days, maybe up to a week. And that fully cures them and gets them ready to go into mesh bags, which is how I store them. And I usually store them in the fridge because they last longer that way. But getting them into mesh bags completes the process, and once they're in the bags, they look like this. And that's not a bad harvest. I'm guessing maybe 20, 30 pounds, you know. I'll weigh them when we get inside. Maybe I'll add a caption, but not a bad harvest. And some nice big onions too. That's always fun. So that'll keep us going for several weeks, maybe a few months probably. But that's going to do it. That completes the onion harvest for August 2012.
They're the offspring of Led Zeppelin, the Red Zeppelin. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Creatively named.
Yeah.
And that's why I bought them too.
All right.
All right. We back on?
We're back on.
We're still on?
We're still on. Yeah.
So now you can see what happened. now you can see what happened with the.
I just had to do that.
I thought she was a distinguished guest.
Onions. And right next to where the onions used to be, I should probably put that away, is where the potatoes used to be. And you can see it's just an empty bed. But again, during the month of August is when we harvest all our potatoes. And we have another video to show you, so bear with me. Here are the August potatoes. Now there's a sight you see in mid-afternoon in the garden that you don't see in the evening when we're usually videoing. But we're videoing out here in the dog days of summer, August, to do a couple of harvests, and one of the harvests is potatoes. So that's what we're going to do right now. Now, what you see here is nothing, right? Well, what that is really are the leftover stalks from red Norland potatoes, and because they're totally dead, that means the potatoes are totally done and should be waiting underneath if we didn't have any rodent damage. Now, in this next aisle over is Yukon Gold, but you can see that there's still a little bit of green in those vines, although they are obviously subsiding. So we're not going to pull those yet. We will pull this piece of grass and this piece of clover right here. And then beyond that are the Kennebecks, which are a little later season, and there's still some vine growth happening there. You can see all the green. So we're not going to touch those two varieties. We're only going to do the red Norland here. And so what you're going to see is I'll be clearing out the leftover hay there, and then I'm going to try to dig as many without spearing them as possible and load them into the wheelbarrow, and then we'll wash them off and let them out to dry. And so it's always fun, except for it's kind of a warm time of year to be digging in the soil, but that's just the dog days of summer, and that's when the potatoes are ready, so you got to dig them when they're ready. So we'll be sweating up a storm and hopefully digging some good potatoes. Keep an eye out. So there you have it, red Norland. Not a huge harvest, but probably 5-10 pounds, I would guess. And the good news is, no rodent damage whatsoever, and I only speared one little one. So they're in pretty good shape, and they'll just dry for a couple days here in the mini greenhouse, which has also been fitted with some screen there so that it's a good drying place. And we'll probably use some of these right away in some potato leek soup, because these red Norlands are, they don't store as well as the others, so we want to use them first. But a nice crop nonetheless. Alright, so now you saw what happened with the potatoes.
Fantastic video too.
60 pounds of potatoes inside, ready to go. And that brings us to bedwood before and tomatoes. And the tomatoes have been doing great this year. They are starting to get a little past their peak, as you can see by this. I don't think this is necessarily a disease or a blight or a problem. I think they're just getting old. These are San Marzano, which is a very thick-walled Italian paste type of tomato. They've been coming in very strong. Oops, the first ones tended to have some blossom rot. These are later in the season, they're coming in fine, and they've been very strong and healthy ever since. I'll hand that to my lovely assistant, Sandra.
Carry on.
And next in line is called New Girl. These guys have been, okay. Coming in pretty strong. They're kind of smallish. They've got sort of this pointy end to them. But they're nice and sweet and kind of meaty, and so they've been pretty good and fairly consistent. I haven't had much cracking or anything at all. These are called Martha Washington, and they're a pink variety, the first pink variety I've grown. Let's not look at this one. Okay, let's look at this one. Can you get over to that one? That's a pretty good one. It's got a little crack in it, but you can see the pink color, and these are a larger tomato and very nice, as we say, on tomato sandwiches. As well as other sandwiches that do well with tomatoes. And finally, my personal favorite, which are Juliet's, these little cherry type tomatoes, except for they're a little oblong, and they're absolutely delicious, especially when they're ripened on the vine. Everyone is having one? Good. You want one, Craig?
No, thank you.
Okay. And please excuse our crunching and munching, but that's what you have to do when you're in the garden, is enjoy some of the crop as you walk by. That brings us over to Pepperland. And Jesse's also here. Hey Jesse, do you want a tomato? Jesse and Frankie both love tomatoes, although sometimes she's more interested in chasing them than eating them. You want one? Nope. Okay. That is good for me. So peppers, I believe this row is shishito. I don't see any real ripe ones. Oh, here's one. Let me put this down and see if I can get this out of your way. Can you get that? Mm-hmm. Nice, bright red. They're very tasty. Very good for frying. And I've also frozen a bunch. Here's another nice size one over here. Although it's got a little bit of a flaw in it. And then right next to that are Melrose. And these are a smaller, more thin-walled, but again, very nice for stir-frying whole. And they get this crimson color, which is just very nice. Pretty prolific, but the plants are much smaller. Next over are one of my favorites, called Tequila Sunrise. This is the second year I've grown these, and in here is where the best ones of these are. But they turn that lovely orangey sunrise color, and that's where they get their name, I'm sure. They start off green like this, and they're also fine for just slicing up and stir frying. I don't even remove the seeds or anything. I just slice them up and mix them in with everything else. Our final variety, and I don't, oh, here's one over here. Our orange, what the heck is the name of them? I can't remember. If you hold that for him to get a shot of. I think they're just called Orange Bell. And they're a little bit susceptible to flaws, like holes and things like that, and scald spots. But we've gotten lots of them, and they're very good, very thick-walled, blocky kind of peppers, and delicious. Next to that we have eggplants, and these are called aswad, I think. And they do turn a deep purple. These are not turning, and I'm not sure why. But this one over here, you can see that dark purple color coming in. I always like to have that in the garden, as you've heard me say many times before, just because it's fun. And the leeks are the next thing that completes this bed. They're getting a little old. I need to pull these because if I wait too long, they split. But we've already had some potato leek soup, and I'll probably be pulling the rest of these within the week to get them at least cut up and in the fridge, and maybe pre-cooked and frozen, so they can be used for another batch of potato leek soup. But I planted them extra heavy and have been pulling them all the way along, so we've really done well with the leeks this year. So nestled in between the marigolds and eggplants on this side, we have our leeks, our couple of rows of leeks. They've been doing well. We've been pulling some all season, but we want to pull a few this month for sure, because we've just harvested red Norland potatoes, and we want to make potato leek soup. And we don't want to wait too long, because the leeks, if they're left in the ground too long, they get kind of ugly. So I'm going to pull a couple here, and they're in pretty soft soil. So, and that's what they look like. I'll clean them off and give you a close-up. These are pretty good. And let me get this one here. Well, let's see which is a thicker one. Here, I'll get one more over here. Not too bad. Here, I'll just strip these layers off and then show them to you. There we go. Those are a couple of nice looking leeks, and we'll pull a couple more and make ourselves some nice potato leek soup. Not bad. All right, Bubba, what do you think? Getting bored yet? What the good Bubba boy. We discovered last night that Bubba also likes corn on the cob. All the dogs love corn on the cob. Did Bubba have any ground cherries? He didn't try those.
I don't think he tried
He didn't want those. He didn't seem to be too interested in tomatoes, but he did go for the corn. And this is, what this is supposed to be, is this down here. They're supposed to be these red clover ground cover. The idea was to just sort of rest this bed this year. But unfortunately, the clover didn't outbattle the weeds. So this has just turned into one huge weed patch with a few clovers sprinkled in. And the only thing it's been good for is that the dachshunds thinks it's pretty good hunting in here.
Here's a good one.
So Jesse's in here hopping around. Frankie will come in here and spend 20 minutes in here, convinced that he's just about to come across a rodent. And he probably has a couple of times. But that brings us to the end of bed, what is this, 5 now, I think? And our sunflowers. And the sunflowers, my original plan was to have this whole bed in sunflowers, but I couldn't get enough of them to germinate. So this is what I was left with, which is the last quarter of the bed. But you can see why I wanted to do them. They're getting a little past their prime now, but look at how tall they are. I mean, if Craig steps back a little bit, and Mary and I stand in here, or Sandy comes back in here, you can see how tall they get, and they're even bent over. And I don't know if you can see how big that one is across that I'm holding right there. It's got to be a foot across at least. Get these out of your way. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with the harvest or just let them stay here so the birds can eat them. But they were just kind of fun to grow because of how magnificent they are. This one, oh, this is a nice looking one still. It's still got all the leaves on it. And this is a smaller variety. And I can't quite remember. I think that big one that you were just looking at is a white-seeded variety. And this might be more traditional. But, and then there's one right over your head. Yeah. And so far they haven't been picked on by the birds, but they will eventually.
And you can cut the heads off and put them like on your picnic table. I did that one year.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that way you can enjoy seeing the birds. Yeah.
Watch them feed on it.
And they do. They will eat every seed.
So that was kind of fun. And even though it only turned out to be a quarter of a bed. Hey, Frankie. How's it going? You waiting for us to pull some corn? Yeah, I know. All the dogs are here. Which brings us to corn. This is the sweet corn, the eating corn, and we've already pulled quite a bit. We've had better years for corn. This one here, I can tell, is kind of populated down here at the bottom, but it's not up at the top. And we've also, I didn't really keep up very well with my spraying, so we've had some earworm problems, but still getting some good eating corn. Maybe I can get an assistant to open that for me.
Or take this
hold
from
my
me,
drink.
yeah.
Let's see how this one is. And then you can see the fans below.
Oh, this
is a pretty nice ear. This is Bedwell's, I believe is the name of the variety. It's probably a little past its prime. To see the way the kernels are kind of pressed together like that. It might not be perfect, but according to the silks, it ought to be okay. But these guys really love corn, and they want this one, but this one's a little too good for dog corn. We'll see if we can find something for them. So that's not a bad ear of corn. And if you remember, this whole bed of corn kind of slopes down to the other end here because it's been planted in the shadow of this huge maple tree, which ordinarily you wouldn't want hanging around your garden, but I'm certainly not going to take down the maple tree for the sake of the garden, so we'll just plant our crops around and maybe not do corn in this end again. Let me see if I can find it. How everybody loves corn on the cob, right? All right. Okay. I'll let Frankie have the worst one there. Jesse, you can. That's a good one. And we'll let our guest have a good one too. And you can see there is absolutely no hesitation. They know what it is, and they love it. Is that true? Look, Frankie's got the silk right across his face. Huh? And Bubba, you can't tell which is silk and which is his fur. Good, huh, Jess? Yeah. Now, if I'm looking at that shot, I'm thinking Frankie's chewing and smiling at the same time. But of course, that's me. I'm a dog nut, so. Good, Bubba? Good boy. Eat it up. All right, well, that's their highlight of the day, that's for sure. All right, I think the next thing we have to do is head out to the external garden. All right, so right now what you are seeing is shots of the pumpkins that I'm not growing. Now, these are not pumpkins. I don't know what these are. They came up, they're volunteers. They're some sort of a cross between a pumpkin and a winter squash. Just judging by the color, it looks like they might be a cross between a pumpkin and a Waltham butternut, because they've got that tan color to them. But these just came up on their own, and I just let them go because I'm not trying to grow any pumpkins or winter squash. Summer squash is the only thing I'm growing. And these came up that tan color. What's fallen down here is the remnants of my grape plants, which I gave up a long time ago, getting some harvest out of. This isn't the right place, or I haven't got the right soil. But here's where the real business is. And this is my popcorn and Indian corn bed, this end being popcorn. And as you can see, they're getting very brown, and that's kind of the nice thing about popcorn and Indian corn, is that you don't have to worry about harvesting them right at the exact right moment, because you want them to go to completely being done. Now, like I said, I didn't quite keep up with my spraying, so that's a little earworm there, but he doesn't eat very much, and he's not going to be there very long if I can help it. There we go. But you can see you can see the little tight, small kernels, and that's popcorn. So I'm not sure how long it needs to stay on the stalk and how long it needs to be aged before it's prime popping material. But I just thought this would be lots of fun to try, and we might stick one of these in the microwave tonight and just see what happens, because I've got a lot of it. It goes clear back 32 feet this side and 16 feet wide. And I did try to put up some fencing to keep the deer out, but the weight of the pumpkin and the squash has just sort of knocked it down. So the deer have sort of had their way with some of it. But in the meantime, look at these. These are also not Atlantic giant pumpkins, because they don't come in green, but this is some other kind of pumpkin, or pumpkin winter squash mix. They look more like proper pumpkins, and they're all over the place, and you know, some of them are going to be a nice size, and they came in late, so they might actually be turning orange for Halloween, which is kind of unusual. They usually turn orange in like August. But you can see here's a spot where the fence has kind of come down, and we've had deer come in here and kind of munch on things. But again, this was just planted as sort of a fun project, and there's so much of it that I think we're going to have plenty to use for decor and for popcorn, and so that the deer can have their share as well. Okay, the second part of the exterior corn patch here is Indian corn. Again, the first year I've tried to do that. And these are kind of amazing ears. Let me put my drink down a little bit. You can see that that's a good, I don't know, is that 2 feet? 18 inches? 2 feet? And look at the size of the kernels. And we're peeking into this one. But I'm going to let this one stay on the stalk a little longer. But they're just huge ears. They're great. There's one over here that looks like it's a little more ready to be pulled. Which one was? I think it's this one here. And it's a little chewed up again, but I'm going to yank it anyway and see if it's a good one. Yeah, and you can see, look at all the colors. And some of these, they're all dark. Some of them are a lot of yellow. This one happens to be very multicolor. You can see there's just all kind of variety of color in this guy. Now it's a little sparse on the end here, but other than that, it's just great. And look at the size of those kernels as well. So this is going to make for great decor. I'm not going to make the mistake of pulling the husks off, which is what I did with the first one, because of course you want to use that to help hang them. But that's not bad. Now I think they need to stay on here as long as possible to get as dry as possible, but we're going to get obviously a nice crop of Indian corn. So that's going to do it for outside. We'll make our way back into the garden see how the ladies and the pups are doing. As you can tell, Jessie knows we were outside the garden and is patiently waiting for us to come back. Jessie's a swanky boy. No, you stay, we're coming in. You stay. More corn?
Oh, he was just like... no doggies. No.
All right, now you can see that we've brought back, this is the one eating corn.
Yep.
This is the Indian corn that I showed you out there. This is the popcorn. And these are the dogs that are interested in the corn. And they think that any corn that we pick must be for them. But they're sadly mistaken.
No, not for doggies.
So
Not for doggies.
we might get them some of their own corn.
Get some more corn.
Here's your corn.
Get your corn over there.
I don't know where it went.
I'll take it in.
Now we can just put it over.
Oh, okay. That's another beauty, isn't it? That I love those colors. I love that purple.
All right. I think that's going to do it basically for the August Marvin Gardens video with distinguished guests. And by the way, you might wonder why this crew has come up to do this filming. This is a very high-tech, knowledgeable crew that are tracking the effects of storms on home gardens. So they have been coming up with the storm Isaac. And this guy right here knows his stuff. He knows everything about weather and how it affects gardening. And this lady behind me will stand up for anything that he does, 100% behind him, because that's just who she is and what their relationship is all about. But I'm very pleased to have this distinguished team with me today to help shoot the August video, including the lovely Sandra Perkins Rosenshine, who is an excellent vegetable eater.
Among the best.
And among other things, she also is a very good color commentator. She's been proving that the entire weekend. And we've had a very colorful time. This is, like I say, this is really actually September, Labor Day. Oh, a thorn between two roses.
Are you going to tell them that we're your sisters, or are you trying to keep that a secret?
Damn. Yes, we're blood. This is my younger sister, Mary, and my eldest sister, Swandi. Cynthia would certainly be here if she could be, she would stand in between here. Yeah. And Irene, the youngest, would stand right over here, and she would also love to be here. So happy Labor Day to everybody from Marvin Gardens and the entire Marvin Gardens clan. And this is the August video, even though it's being shot on Labor Day weekend. We will have a September video. And hope you enjoyed it, and hope you stayed awake through the entire thing, because it's probably going to be, once we're all said and done, 45 minutes to an hour long. But thanks for sharing, and we'll see you next month in September, Marvin Gardens 2012. Bye, y'all.